Welcome to the basics video, where I go over the basics of the phone that the average person will care about. This video is for the LG G6. The LG G6 has two 13 megapixel back cameras, one being a wide angle sensor and the other being a standard angle sensor, along with a 5 megapixel front camera. The standard camera does not have issues during the day, but does not play well during the night. Low light images have always seemed to be an issue with LG phones in my experience, and this phone is no different. The image does look a lot nicer once it's been taken, but it looks disgusting before the shot. Again, this is all low light images. During the day there aren't any issues and it picks up the image fine. The wide angle lens is pretty nice, but it still gives off that fisheye look to images and videos, so that should be improved. I will mute the audio because this kid was yelling, but the video inside the store does not cut it for me. The camera is capable of 4K, but the recording was done at 1080p 60 frames per second. For the most part, the flagship's camera is not going to be horrible, and we generally use these phones outside and during the day. And in that situation, the G6 took perfect pictures for me. There's room for improvement on low light image quality along with the wide angle lens, so the camera deserves a 9 out of 10. Now the software is interesting because it's pretty standard. It is also not confusing. It's almost like LG wanted to make sure people understood this design. You want to turn on the screen? Double tap and the screen comes on. Want to find something in the settings? It's in a reasonable spot. What about the camera settings? Simple. Don't want a bunch of LG apps? Done. This operating system runs like regular Nougat with a LG skin that is very minimal. The main features are gestures and a bunch of camera editing tools, and I can't even think of another one. Speaking of the camera, Snapchat looks weird on this phone, as it usually does on most Android devices. It could be because of the software or the screen ratio, but it's something I wanted you guys to know. Also, the phone will let you know that it found you in a creepy way. The phone gives you what you need and leaves out most of the junk that other phones give you. The phone was a breeze to use and wasn't confusing at all. The only issue that I ran into might have not even been related to the software at all, but I needed to let you guys know what happened. I'm using the Verizon LG G6 and I have T-Mobile. The phone is factory unlocked and I have the internet settings in, but there were times where I would get no service. The phone is factory unlocked and I have the internet settings in the phone, but there were times where I'd get no service or very little service. The reason might be because T-Mobile runs off LTE bands 2, 4, 12, 66, and 71, but this phone has 2, 4, and 66. I'm also pretty sure that 66 and 71 aren't in my area, so I'm only grabbing a few towers. So while this phone will work on different carriers, make sure your phone supports your carrier. The funny thing about this software is when it's updated, it tells you it's a good idea to charge your phone. I mean, I guess they're not lying about that. With the software being simple to understand and being on Nougat 7.0, I will give this category a 9 out of 10. Take that, iOS 10. Now the battery is not that bad. The increase of 600 milliamps is awesome on LG's part, but remember it only went up 300 milliamps in the last 3 to 4 years. Regardless, the battery is actually awesome. Almost 11 hours of basic usage left me with 80%, while 14 hours of heavy usage left me with 24%. Another day of heavy usage gave me 10 hours of usage with 57% left, so this phone should last you a full 24 hours with reasonable usage. This is all with the brightness all the way up. Fast charging is a must nowadays, and this phone has it. When I was at 17%, I was told that it would take an hour and 26 minutes to fully charge, and it did. When I was at 72%, it told me it would take about 45 minutes to fully charge, and it did. It honestly seems like it charges faster than it's supposed to, so I can't complain about the charging speed. This is a newer battery and will obviously degrade over time, but it is a good start. Unfortunately, you can't change the battery manually and will require a third party or LG to replace the battery. You can replace the battery yourself only if you're okay with risking water resistance. The battery really impressed me, so I will give it an 8.5 out of 10. Now this is the part where the G5 and G4 users will listen the most. What changed? Why should I upgrade to the G6? Well, I explained mainly in my specs video and a little bit here, but there are some weird differences from the older models. Gone is the removable battery. LG seemed to be the last one to do it, but we did get water resistance. Oh, the price we pay. They increased the non-removable battery's capacity, so it's not a complete letdown. While the cameras are 13 megapixel sensors, the difference is that they both are 13 megapixels. The G4 has a 16 megapixel standard lens, while the G5 has a 16 megapixel standard lens and an 8 megapixel wide-angle lens. They have somewhat met in the middle with both lenses being 13 megapixel sensors, and it was a solid change. The screen is a major change and feels more vibrant than the older phones. I was impressed when the LG G3 came out, but now to me it's just meh. But this screen on the G6 is absolutely amazing. It has a similar resolution and more pixels per inch, and it seems better than any LG flagship to date. The glass back is definitely a fingerprint magnet, but it gives the device a premium feel, so G5 users will enjoy this. The lack of modularity may be a curveball to some, but it wasn't executed properly in the first place. Maybe one day they will try again. The one that really threw me off was the lack of an infrared blaster. Sure, it might not be a big deal, but the infrared blaster is super small and the device is pretty much the same thickness as the older devices, so why did they leave it out? Just like wireless charging, it isn't entirely needed, but it's nice to have. Also, it's nice to use the infrared blaster if you can't find the remote. They removed laser autofocus, which was introduced in the G3, and it was pretty awesome. The camera does focus at a decent speed, but it is easily beat by phones without laser focus like the iPhone 7 and Samsung S8. The front camera was dropped to a 5 megapixel sensor from an 8 megapixel sensor, so that's kind of odd. It does have a wide angle lens, but it captures less pixels. With all those changes, there are some benefits and downsides, but I believe the G6 gets an 8 out of 10 in this category. Now this category is an interesting one. This is the durability and repair costs. In the specs video, I told you that it has Gorilla Glass, but it has two different versions. It has Gorilla Glass 3 on the front and on the camera lens, but on the back panel it's Gorilla Glass 5. With this said, I fixed this phone a few times and I've seen all three panels of glass broken. The front screen will cost about $180 to fix, or about $95 to do it yourself. The camera lens will run you roughly $65 to fix, or about $7 if you do it yourself. And the back will run you about $45 to $65, or $15 to do it yourself. I am not sure if the replacements are Gorilla Glass, so be careful. The aluminum frame is nice, but major damage to the corners will cause premature breaking of the front and back glass. This phone is water resistant, so liquid shouldn't be an issue, but you'll have to make sure that the SIM card tray is perfectly in place. The charging port can be replaced without soldering and will run you about $15 or $65 to $85 for someone to do it for you. The G6 got rid of the external modules, but there are many internal modules that can be replaced with ease, so this gets a 7.5 out of 10. Now, should you buy this phone? With the score of 84%, I believe that you should buy this phone if you're still interested. The power button on the back is strange for some, but it works for me. My index finger meets with it naturally, but it doesn't mean that it will for other people. The back glass may be a deal breaker, but they gave you Gorilla Glass 5 to help you make the decision. With the precious materials used to make this phone, I feel like the phone still needs a case. Nothing crazy, just a basic case or maybe even a skin. The curved screen takes some getting used to and is weird wielding it with one hand, but the extra screen is a blessing in disguise. I hope you learned something from these videos, but I want to learn something from you. What would you change about this phone? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter at MattofRWR. Thanks for watching.